So I had my first consultation with the surgeon at the Breathe Institute, Dr. Kevin Koppelson, and basically he took a bunch of scans and photos and did some measurements. There's a full report on the way, so when that comes I'll make a new video on it, but for now just a quick update. He basically suggested that we do two steps. First is surgical assist MSE, which I talked about in my last video. And I'll probably make another video talking more about what it is and what it's going to be like. And then he says that that's unlikely to resolve all my issues. So after that, he says you will most likely need a double MMA jaw surgery. So I mean, the MSE is going to be a 6-month process. Then I got to get braces after. Somewhere in between and after. I don't know how long that's going to go on for. And then the double jaw surgery is going to be 6 months. So I'm guessing like a year to a year and a half to 2 years, something in that range, from start to finish for this roadmap. And the Breathe Institute is not covered by any insurances, so it would be pretty pricey. So the raw cost of the MSE expansion is $9,000 to $10,000, around that number, and then the double jaw surgery is like $25,000 to $30,000. There might be additional costs such as hospital fees that I'm not aware of. I think I'd have to pay for braces and costs from the orthodontist, because Dr. Koppelson and another orthodontist are going to work together to create a game plan. They have to kind of work together to plan out how the braces and the surgery are going to work together. So I don't really know. It's going to be tens of thousands of dollars. My insurance covers 50% of out-of-network costs, but according to them, the insurance will try to pay for as little as possible, so they'll value the surgery at much less than it's actually valued. He said that they might total to paying maybe, who knows, 4, 8, 10, 15,000 of the entire cost, something around there. So I'd still be left paying few tens of thousands of dollars around then, and that's a lot of money, of course. So he's also suggesting a protocol of surgical assisted MSE that he just recently invented, and he's only performed on 2 patients before. So there's a lot of cost, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I feel like this is a pretty new field in general. So I reached out to Dr. Ting, who is an orthodontist who has a lot of clout in this field, and he is covered by most PPOs, except the MSE is not, but the double jaw surgery is. But his MSE cost is $3.5K, so it's already less than half the amount, almost a third of the amount, and the double jaw surgery should be covered, at least to a large extent, since it's in network. So I'll be saving a lot of money. Dr. Ting has a lot of clout in the field, and his surgeon that he works with, Dr. Vaughn, does too. And so I'm going to be getting a second opinion. The surgery may be different since it's not going to be using Dr. Koppelson's own protocol. So I'm going to keep working with both of them and just see what happens. So until then, I wanted to talk about what are my symptoms of UARS. At my current state, I have a lot of fatigue. I feel like I could close my eyes and fall asleep at any moment. But if I do close my eyes, I definitely won't fall asleep, because another one of my big symptoms is anxiety. And the reason for that is when you are choking while you're sleeping, your parasympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive and wakes you up. And if it's just constantly being kicked into overdrive over and over, patients often get stuck in a state of anxiety, and that's my case. So I have a lot of anxiety, I feel sleepy all the time, but I very rarely am able to sleep easily. So, for example, I also have, I'm very prone to insomnia. I have to have a very rigid sleep schedule in order to be able to fall asleep, and even then it's pretty difficult. I will be making a video about my sleep schedule and how I deal with that pretty soon. So another symptom is headaches. I have a headache every moment of every day, but the severity goes up and down. I generally have like a soreness behind my eyes, and I have like this kind of weakness, like tingling, aching on my occipital nerves in the back of my head. And one thing I noticed is that when my nasal congestion flares up, then I'll have this feeling all across the midsection of my face, sometimes above my scalp, that it's just strapped and tightened. I often feel pretty dizzy, like if I move around too much, I'll get dizzy very easily. I'm also, when I do a lot of forms of exercise like skateboarding, I always feel like my body is like 1 second behind my brain. So I feel kind of a little bit off balance a lot. And also, I'm very sensitive to vibrations, so I can't sing. Not that I was much of a singer before anyway, but if I sing for like 30 seconds, it'll give me like this kind of ringing headache. I also notice a lot of brain fog and difficulty focusing and difficulty with critical thinking, even difficulty talking, at least relative to the way I felt I could talk throughout most of my life. One thing that Dr. Zoggy also pointed out to me, which I thought was interesting, is that I have a lot of twitches. I twitch my neck, I twitch my eyes, and he said that that's a very common symptom of UARS patients, also due to the overdrive of the parasympathetic nervous system. And so now what are some of the symptoms that I'm experiencing while I sleep? The first is that I wake up a lot throughout the night. I wake up at least 5 times a night, but it's almost always closer to like 10 or 15, and those are just the ones that I remember. I hear that a lot of times you wake up and you don't have any memory of it. And I don't just wake up randomly. It always feels like in the first half of sleep, maybe the first 3, 4, or 5 hours of sleep, I maybe wake up once that I remember. And then in the second half of sleep, especially kind of towards the later morning, I'll just wake up constantly. So sometimes once every like few minutes, sometimes every 15 minutes or something like that. And that kind of pattern makes sense for this reason. The majority of your dreaming is in REM sleep. And in order to not act out your dreams, your body releases this paralytic enzyme that paralyzes all your non-essential muscles, so you don't get up and start sleepwalking or performing other activities. And the majority of REM is in the later hours of your sleep, so it kind of makes sense that my body is paralyzing. The muscles all around my airways, like my jaw and tongue and whatever, are all relaxing more than they ever would and creating more obstructions, causing me to wake up more often. Each one of these awakenings is accompanied by a raging headache, and the headaches increase in severity as the night goes on. By the time I wake up, I don't feel rested, and I immediately wake up in a ton of pain all around my head. I do have difficulty driving. I try to be very conscious about how I'm feeling before I get behind the wheel, and there have been plenty of times where I just opted to get an Uber to go to routine places such as work. But I do make more mistakes than I think I used to, and I definitely feel less safe driving than I used to. You might be wondering, when did all these symptoms start? The majority of them started like 3 years ago. Around that time, I started just feeling a little bit of brain fog, and my symptoms just kind of molded into different flavors over the years, and I was actually able to pinpoint a couple of the different causes. I'm working on a big blog that goes over all the details that I'll post on my website, but some of the causes of my symptoms had actually been due to different medications and needing glasses and other things like that I had resolved, which was great. But even as a child, I always had problems with insomnia. I often remember waking up a lot throughout the night and sometimes not being able to breathe. And I've always had kind of an anxious twitching and behaviors along that line. It kind of makes you think, like, would I have developed differently? Would my brain have developed differently? Would my body have developed differently if I never had this condition? But hey, as long as I solve it, I'll be good.